This is StoryLink Radio. The professional storytellers at StoryLink Radio have been around for a long time. The Irish knew storytellers by the name Seanchai. We are committed to bringing stories to life through the spoken word as in traditional oral storytelling. We present stories of many genres: ancient myths and legends, short stories, full-length novels, science fiction, high fantasy, philosophy, traditions, classics, drama, fiction, non-fiction, romance, theater, ghosts and haunts, stories of the strange, and much, much more. Our stories may be drawn from contemporary sources or from some dusty, near-forgotten tome. Regardless, it is a treat like no other to listen to stories and tales presented in a live format with the emotion and feeling a true professional storyteller brings, conjuring up images of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. So join us at StoryLink Radio and let us be your Seanchai for a time. Our stories are presented before a live audience, then recorded for the StoryLink Radio podcast for your on-demand listening pleasure. Please visit StoryLinkRadio.com for show notes, to find out how to join our live audience, and for lots of free stuff, including free audiobooks and much more. Visit www.storylinkradio.com. Darby O'Gill and the Good People by Hermione Templeton Cavanaugh. Now this history sets forth the only true account of the adventures of a daring Tipperary man named Darby O'Gill among the fairies of Slieve na Mon. Now although only one living man of his own free will ever went among them there, still any learned parson in all of Ireland can tell you that the abode of the good people is in the hollow heart of the great mountain Slieve na Mon. That same one man was Darby O'Gill, a cousin of me own mother. Now one night the good people took the eldest of Darby's 3 fine pigs. The next week a second pig went the same way. The third week not a thing had Darby left for the Ballinrobe fair. Now, you may easily think how sore and sorry the poor man was, and how Bridget, his wife, and the children carried on. The rent was due. All left was to sell his cow Rosie to pay it. Rosie was the apple of Darby's eye. Oh, he admired and he respected the pigs all right. Oh, but he loved Rosie. Worst luck of all was yet to come. On the morning when Darby went for the cow to bring her into market, bad scrans to the hoof was there, but in her place only a wisp of dirty straw to mock him. Millie murder, what a howling and sad screeching and cursing did Darby bring back to the house. Now Darby was a bold man, as you know, and a desperate man in his anger, as you soon will see. He shoved his feet into a pair of brogues, he clapped his hat on his head, and he gripped his stick in his hand. "Fairy or no fairy, ghost or goblin, living or dead, who took Rosie O'Roo this day?" he says. And with those wild words, Darby bolted into the direction of Slieve na Mon. All day long he climbed like an ant over the hill, looking for a hole or a cave through which he could get at the prison of Rosie. At times he struck the rocks with his black horn, crying out a challenge. "Come out, you the tucker," he called out. "If you have the courage of a mouse, you murdering thieves, come out." No one made answer. At least, not just then. Aye, but at night, as Darby turned hungry and footsore toward home, who should he meet up with on the crossroads? But the old fairy doctor, Sheila Maguire. Oh, well known Sheila was as a spy for the good people. And she spoke up. "Oh, then you're the foolish, blundering-headed man to be saying what you've said and doing what you've done this day, Darby O'Gill," says she. "Bah, what do I care?" says he fiercely. "I'd fight the devil tonight for my beautiful cow." "Is that right?" says Sheila. "Then go you into Mrs. Hagan's meadow beyond, and wait till the moon is up. By and by you'll see a herd of cows come down from the mountain, and your own will be among them, Darby." "Oh, what shall I do then?" asked Darby, his voice trembling with excitement. Sorra here, I care what you do, but there'll be lads there, and hundreds you won't see, that'll stand no ill words, Darby O'Gill." "Would I thank you kindly," says Darby, "and I bid you good evening, ma'am." He turned away, leaving her standing there alone, looking after him. But he was sure that he heard voices talking to her, and laughing and tittering behind himself. Now, it was dark night when Darby stretched himself on the ground in Hagan's meadow. The yellow rim of the moon just tipped the edge of the hills. The time passed mortal slow, and it was an hour later when 100 slow shadows stirring up the mists crept from the mountain way towards him. Now first he must find Rosie among the herd. To creep quiet as a cat through the hedge and reach the first cow was only a minute's work. And then Darby's plan to wait till cockcrow, with all the other sensible thoughts, went cleanly out of the lad's head before his rage, for cropping eagerly along sweet grass. The first beast he met was Rosie. With a leap, Darby was behind her, his stick falling sharply on her flanks. The ingratitude of that cow almost broke Darby's heart. Rosie turned fiercely on him with a vicious lunge, her two horns aimed at his breast. Oh, there was no suppler boy in the parish than Darby, and well for him it was so, for the mad rush the cow gave would have caught any man the least trifle heavy on his legs, aye, and ended his days right and then and there. Oh, but as it was, our hero sprang to one side. As Rosie passed, his left hand gripped her tail. Now, I'll have you know, when one of the O'Gills takes a hold of a thing, he hangs on like a bull terrier, he does. And so away Darby went, rushed along with Rosie. Aye, and now began a race the like of which was never heard of before nor since. 10 jumps to the second and 100 feet to the jump. Rosie's tail standing straight up in the air, firm as an iron bar, and Darby floating straight out behind, 1,000 furious fairies flying a short distance after, filling the air with wild commands and threatenings. When all of a sudden the sky opened for a crash of lightning that shivered the hills, and a roar of thunder that turned out of their beds every man and woman and child in 4 counties. Aye, flash after flash came the lightning, hitting on every side of Darby. If it wasn't for fear of hurting Rosie, the fairies would certainly have killed Darby. As it was, he was stiff with fear, afraid to hold on and afraid to let go, but flew waving in the air at Rosie's tail like a flag. As the cow turned into the long, narrow valley which cuts into the east side of the mountain, the good people caught up with the pair. Oh, and what they didn't do to Darby! And the line of sticking pins and pulling whiskers and pinching wouldn't take long to tell. In truth, he was just about to let go his hold and take the chances of a fall, when the hillside opened and whisk, the cow turned into the mountain. Oh, Darby found himself flying down a wide, high passage which grew lighter as he went along. He heard the opening behind him shut like a trap, and his heart almost stopped beating. For this was the fairies' home, in the heart of Slieve na Mon, and Darby was captured by them. When Rosie finally stopped, so stiff were all Darby's joints that he had great trouble loosening himself to come down. He landed among a lot of angry-faced little people, each no higher than your hand, every one wearing a green velvet cloak and a red cap. "Aye, we'll take him to the king," says a red-whiskered wee chap. "What'll he do to the murdering spalpeen? Be good and plenty, ah!" With that, they marched our bold Darby, a prisoner now, down the long passage, which every second grew wider and lighter, and fuller of the little people. Sometimes, though, he met with human beings like himself, only the black charm was upon them, they having been stolen at some time or other by the good people. He saw lost people there from every parish in Ireland, both commoners and gentry. Each was laughing and talking and diverting himself with another. Off to the sides you could see small cobblers making brogues, tinkers mending pans, tailors sewing clothes, smiths hammering horseshoes, everyone merrily to his trade, making a diversion out of work. Down near the centre of the mountain was a room 20 times higher and broader than the biggest church in all the world. As they drew near this room, there rose the sound of a reel played on bagpipes. Oh, the music was so bewitching that Darby, who was the gracefullest reel dancer in all of Ireland, don't you know, he could hardly make his feet behave. At the room's edge, Darby stopped short and caught his breath. The sight was so entrancing. Set over the broad floor were thousands and thousands of the good people, facing this way and that and dancing to a reel, while on a throne in the middle of the room sat old Brian Connors. Aye, Brian Connors, the king of the fairies, blowing on the bagpipes. The little king, with a gold crown on his head, wearing a beautiful green velvet coat and red knee breeches, sat with his legs crossed, beating time with his foot to the music. Oh, there were many here from Darby's own parish, and what was his surprise to see there Maureen McGibney, Darby's own wife's sister, whom Darby had supposed resting decently in her grave in holy ground these 3 years. There she was, gliding back and forth, against the little grey-whiskered, round-stomached fairy-man, as though there was never a care nor a sorrow in all the world. Now, as I told you before, I tell you again, Darby O'Gill was the finest reel dancer in all of Ireland, and he came from a family of dancers. Though I say it, who shouldn't, as he was my mother's own cousin. Now, there are 3 things in this world which will banish sorrow: love, and whiskey, and music. So, in surprise of it all melted a little, Darby's feet led him into the thick of the throng, right under the throne of the king, where he flung hair to the winds and put his heart and mind into his 2 nimble feet. Darby's dancing was such that pretty soon those around stood still to admire. Backward and forward, side-step and turn, cross over, then forward, a hand on his hip, his stick twirling free, side-step and forward, cross over again, bow to his partner and hammer the floor. Well, it wasn't long till half the dancers crowded around, admiring, clapping their hands and shouting encouragement. The old king grew so excited that he laid down the pipes, he took up his fiddle, he came down from the throne, and standing for instance Darby began a finer tune than the first. The dancing lasted a whole hour, no one speaking a word, well, except to cry out, "Foot it, you devil! Easy now, he's treading on flowers! More power to you! Play faster, king, play faster! Hooroo, hooroo, hooray! Ho, ho!" And then the king stopped and said, "Well, that beats Banagher! Ha, hi! And Banagher beats the world! Who are you? How came you here?" And then Darby up and told the whole story. When he had finished, the king looked serious. "Well, I'm glad you came, and I'm sorry you came too," he says. "If we had put our charm on you outside to bring you in, you'd never die till the end of the world, when we here must all go to hell. But," he added quickly, "well, there's no use in worrying about that now. That's neither here nor there. Those willing to come with us can't come at all, at all. And here you are of your own free acting will. Howsomever you're here, and we daren't let you go outside to tell the others of what you've seen, and so give us a bad name about taking things, you know. We'll make you as comfortable as we can here, Darby, and so you won't be worrying about Bridget and the childers, and have a good sovereign left with them every day of their lives. My, but I wish we had to come neither on you." "Oh, but I wish we had to come either on you," he says, with a sigh. "Oh, for it's easy to see your great company. Now come up to my place and have a noggin of punch for friendship's sake," says he. And that, my friend, is how Darby O'Gill began his 6-month stay with the good people. Not a thing was left undone to make Darby contented and happy. A civiller people than the good people, well, he never met. At first he couldn't get over saying, "God keep all here," and "God save you kindly," and things like that, which was like burning them with a hot iron. Well, if it weren't for Maureen McGibney, I'm certain that Darby would still be in Slieve-na-Mon at this hour. Sure, she was always the wise girl, ready with her crafty plans and warnings. On a day when they two were sitting all alone together, she says to him, "Darby, dear," says she, "you know it isn't right for a decent man of family to be spending his days comforting and idling and filling the hours with sports and nonsense. We must get you out of here. For what is a sovereign a day to compare with the care and protection of a father?" says she. "Oh, true for ye," moaned Darby. "In my heart is just splitting for a sight of Bridget and the childer. Bad luck to the day I set so much store that dirty, ungrateful, treacherous cow." "Oh, Darby, I know well how you feel," says Maureen. "For I'd give the whole world to say 3 words to Bob Broderick, that you tell me that out of grief for me has never kept company with any other girl to this day. Oh, but that'll never be, will it?" she says, "because I must stop here till the day of judgment, and then I must go to—" She stopped talking and began to crying. "But if you get out, Darby, you and bear a message to Bob for me, maybe," she says. Oh, but it's easy to be talking about going out, but how can it be done? Asked Darby.
There is a way,
says Maureen, wiping her big grey eyes.
But it might take years. First, you must know that the good people can never put their charm on anyone who is willing to come with them. That's why you came safe. Then again, they can't work their harm in the daylight, and after cock crow any mortal eye can see 'em plain. Nor can they harm anyone who has a sprig of holly, nor pass over a leaf or a twig of holly, 'cause that's the Christmas bloom, you know. Well, there's a certain evil word for a charm that opens the side of the mountain, and I will try to find it out for you, Darby. Without that word, the armies of the world couldn't get out or in. But you must be patient and wise, and wait.
Oh, I will do so, with the help of God, says Darby. At these words, Maureen gave a terrible screech.
Ah, you cruel man, ye, said she. Don't you know that it's to say a pious words to one of the good people, or to one of them under their black charm like me, is like cutting him with a knife?
The next night, she came to Darby again.
Now you watch yourself now, she says, for tonight they're going to leave the door of the mountain open to try you. And if you stir 2 steps outside, they'll put the come hither on you, she says.
Oh, and sure enough, when Darby took his walk down the passage after supper, as he did every night, there the side of the mountain lay wide open, and no one in sight. Oh, for sure the temptation to make one rush was great. But Darby only looked out a minute, and went whistling back down the passage, knowing well that 100 hidden eyes were on him all the while. For another dozen nights after it was the same. At another time, Maureen said,
Oh, the king himself is going to try you hard the day, so beware.
She had no sooner said the words than Darby was called for, and went up to the king.
Oh, Darby, my soul, says the king in a soothing way, have this noggin of punch. I bet there never was brewed. It's the last we'll have for many a day. I'm going to set you free, Darby O'Gill. That's what I am. I king, says Darby, putting on a mournful face. How have I offended ye? Oh, no offence at all, says the king. Only we're depriving you.
Oh, no depravity in life, says Darby.
I have lashings and leavings to eat and to drink, and nothing but fun and diversion all day long. Out in the world there was nothing but work and trouble and sickness, disappointment and care. Oh, but Bridget and the children then, says the king, giving him a sharp look out of half-shut eyes.
Oh, as for that, king, says Darby,
it's easier for a widow to get a husband or for orphans to find a father than it is for them to pick up a sovereign a day.
So the king looked mighty satisfied and smoked for a while without another word.
Well then, would you be minding going out in the evening now and then, helping the boys to mind the cows?
The king asked at last. Darby feared to thrust himself outside in their company.
Well, I'll tell you how it is, replied my brave Darby. Some of the neighbours might see me and spread the report on me that I'm with the fairies, and that'd be disgracing to Bridget and the childers, he says.
The king knocked the ashes from his pipe.
Aye, you're a wise man, besides being the height of good company, says he. And it's sorry I am you didn't take me at my word, for then we would have you always, at least to the day of judgment when... but that's neither here nor there. Howsoever, we'll bother you about it no more, Darby.
And from that day they treated him as one of their own.
Now it was one day, 5 months after, that Maureen plucked Darby by the coat and led him off to a lonely spot. I've got the word, Darby, she says.
Have you, faith?
What is it then? Says Darby, all of a tremble. And then Maureen whispered a word, so blasphemous, so irreligious-like, that Darby blessed himself. When Maureen saw him making the sign, she fell down in a fit. The holy emblem hurt her so, the poor child. Now mark my words. 3 hours after this, me bold Darby was sitting at his own fireside talking to Bridget and the children. The neighbours were hurrying to him down every road, through every field, carrying armfuls of holly bushes, as he had sent word for them to do. Darby knew well he'd have fierce and savage visitors before the morning. Now after they had come with the holly,
He had to make a circle of it so thick around the house that a fly couldn't walk through without touching a twig or a leaf. Aye, but that was not all. You'll know what a wise girl and what a crafty girl that Maureen was when you hear what the neighbours did next. They made a second ring of holly outside the first, so that the house sat in two great wreaths, one wreath around the other. The outside ring was much bigger, and left a good space between it and the first, with room for ever so many people to stand there. It was like the inner ring, except for except for a little gate, left open as though by accident, where the fairies could walk in. Oh, ho, ho, but it wasn't an accident at all, only the wise plan of Maureen's. But nearby this little gap, in the outside wreath, lay a sprig of holly with a bit of twine tied to it, and then the twine ran along up to Darby's house and into the window, where its end lay convenient to Darby's hand. A little pull on the twine would drag the stray piece of holly into the gap and close tight that outside ring. It was a trap, don't you see? And when the fairies walked in through the gap, the twine was to be pulled, and so they were to be made prisoners between the two rings of holly. They couldn't get into Darby's house because the circle of holly nearest the house was so tight that a fly couldn't get through without touching the blessed tree or its wood. And likewise, when the gap in the outer wreath was closed, they couldn't get out again neither. Well, anyway, these things were hardly finished and fixed when the dusky brown of the hills warned the neighbours of twilight, and they scurried like frightened rabbits to their homes. Only one amongst them all had courage to sit inside Darby's house awaiting the dreadful visitors, and that one was Bob Broderick. Oh, my friend, what vengeance was in store could not be guessed at all, only it was sure that it was to be more terrible than any yet wreaked on mortal man. Now, not in Darby's house alone was the terror, for in their anger the good people might lay waste the whole parish. The roads and the fields were empty and silent in the darkness. Not a window glimmered with light for miles around. Many a blackguard who hadn't said a prayer for years was now down on his marrow bones among the decent members of his family, thumping his craw, roaring his pather and aves. And in Darby's quiet little house, against which the cunning, the power, and the fury of the good people would first break, well, you can't think of half the suffering of Bridget and the childer as they lay huddled together on the settled bed, nor of the strain on Bob and Darby, who sat smoking their dudines and whispering anxiously together. Now, for some reason or other, the good people were long in coming. 10 o'clock struck, and then 11, after the 12, and not a sound from the outside. The silence and the no sign of any kind had them all just about crazy, when suddenly there fell a sharp rap upon the door. "Oh, Millie, murder!" whispered Darby. "We're in for it now. They've crossed the two rings of holly and are at the door itself." The children begun to cry, and Bridget said her prayers out loud, but no one answered the knock. Rap, rap, rap upon the door, and then a pause.
"God save all here,"
cried a queer voice from the outside. Now, no fairy would say, "God save all here," so Darby took heart and opened the door. And who should be standing there but Sheila Maguire, a spy for the good people. So angry were Darby and Bob that they snatched her within the threshold, and before she knew it, they had her tied hand and foot, wound a cloth round her mouth, and rolled her up under the bed. Within the minute, 1,000 rustling voices sprung from outside. Through the window in the clear moonlight, Darby marked weeds and grass being trampled by invisible feet beyond the farthest ring of holly. Suddenly broke a great cry. The gap in the first ring was found. Signs were plainly seen of uncountable feet rushing through and spreading about the nearer wreath. After that, a howl of madness from the little men and women. Darby, had pulled his twine, and the trap was closed, with 5,000 of the good people entirely at Darby O'Gill's mercy. Princes, princesses, dukes, duchesses, earls, earlesses, and all of the quality of Slieve-de-Mon were now prisoners. Not more than a dozen of the last to come escaped, and they flew back to tell the king. Oh my, For an hour they raged on. All the bad names ever called to mortal man were given free. But Darby said never a word. Pickpocket, sheep staler, murder and thief of a blackguard. Oh, those were the softest words a throwing at him. By and by, howsomever, as it begun to grow near to cock crow, their talk grew a great deal civiler. Then came begging, and pleading, and promising, and entreating. But the doors of the house still stayed shut, and its windows down. Pretty soon Darby's old rooster, Terry, came down from his perch, yawned and flapped his wings a few times. At that the terror and the screeching of the good people would have melted the heart of a stone. And all of a sudden a fine clear voice arose from beyond the crowd. The king had come. The other fairies grew still, a-listening.
"Oi, you murderer and thief of the world," says the king grandly. "What you be doing with my people?"
"Oh, you keep a civil tongue in your head, Brian Connors," says Darby, sticking his head out the window. "For I'm as good a man as you any day," says Darby. And at that very minute, Terry the cock flapped his wings and crowed. In a flash, there sprang into full view the crowd of good people, dukes, earls, princes, quality and commoners, with their ladies, jammed thick together about the house, every one of them with his head thrown back, a bawling and a crying, and tears as big as pigeon eggs rolling down his cheeks. A few feet away, on a straw pile in the barnyard, stood the king, his good crown tilted to the side of his head, his long green cloak about him, and his rod in his hand, but a trembling all over. Now in the middle of the crowd, but towering high above them all, stood Maureen McGibney, in her cloak of green and gold, her purty brown hair falling down on her shoulders, and she, the crafty villain, crying and bawling and abusing Darby with the rest of them. What do you have, and let 'em all go?" says the king. "Aye, first and foremost," says Darby, "you take your spell off that slip of a girl there and send her into the house." In a second, Maureen was standing inside his door, her both arms about Bob's neck and her head on his collarbone. And what they said to each other, and what they done in the way of embracing and kissing and crying, well, I won't take the time in telling you that. "And next," says Darby, "you send back Rosie and the pigs." "Aye, I expected that," says the king. And at those words they saw a black bunch coming through the air. In a few seconds Rosie and the 3 pigs walked into the stable. "And now," says Darby, "you promise me in the name of old Nick, 'tis by him the good people swear, you know, you never to moil nor meddle again with anything or anyone from this parish." Now the king was fair put out by this. Howsomever, he said at last,
"Oh, you ungrateful scoundrel! In the name of old Nick, I promise ye." "Oh, so far so good," says Darby. "But the worst is yet to come, king. Now you must release from your spell every soul you've ever stolen from this parish, and besides, you must send me 10,000 pounds in gold." Well, I tell you, the king gave a roar of anger that was heard in the next barony. "Oh, you high-handed, hard-hearted robber," he says. "I'll never consent," he says. "Oh, well then, please yourself," says Darby. "I see Father Cassidy coming down the hedge," he says, "and he has a prayer for you all in his book that'll burn you up like wisps of straw if he ever catches you here," says Darby. Well, with that the roaring and the bawling was pitiful to hear, I tell you, and in a few minutes a bag with 10,000 gold sovereigns in it was thrown at Darby's threshold, and 50 people, young and some of them old, flew over and stood beside the king. Some of them had spent years with the fairies. The relatives thought them dead and buried. They were the lost ones from that parish. With that, Darby pulled out the bit of twine again, opening the trap, and it wasn't long until every fairy was gone. The green coat of the last one was hardly out of sight when, sure enough, who should come up but Father Cassidy, his book in his hand. He looked at the 50 people who had been with the fairies standing there, the poor creatures, trembling and wondering, and afeared to go to their homes. Darby told him what had happened. "Ah, you foolish man," says the priest. "You could have got every one of them poor prisoners as locked and sleeved them on, let alone those from this parish." "Aye, and would your reverence have me let out the Kirkonians and the Connaught men and the Fordowns, I ask ye?"
Darby says hotly. When Mrs. Maloney there goes home and finds out that Tyrrell has married the widow Hogan, you'll say I let out too many even of this parish. That's what I'm a-thinking, says Darby. Oh, well enough, but, says the priest, you might have got £10,000 for each of us. If I had £10,000, what comfort would I have in being rich? Asked Darby again. To joy well being rich, there shall be plenty of poor, says Darby. Oh, God forgive you selfish man, says Father Cassidy. Oi, and there's another reason besides, says Darby. I never got better treatment, nor friendlier treatment than I had from the good people. And the divil a hair of their heads I'd hurt more than need be, Darby says. Well, some way or other the king heard of this a-saying, and was so mightily pleased that the next night a jug of the finest poteen was left at Darby's door. And after that, indeed, many's the winter night, when the snow lay so heavy that no neighbour was a-stirring, and when Bridget and the childer were in bed, Darby sat by the fire, a noggin of hot punch in his hand, arguing and getting the news of the world. Oh, and a little man with a gold crown on his head, a green cloak on his back, and one foot thrown over the other, sat for an instant, Darby, by the hearth. You've just heard Darby O'Gill and the Good People. This is one tale of many tales of Darby in the old country. We hope that you'll tune back in to Storylink Radio Podcast to hear many more tales of Darby O'Gill. Thank you for listening to Storylink Radio. If you like what you've just heard, we hope you will subscribe to our podcast and pass along our web address, www.storylinkradio.com. Be sure to visit our website for show notes, to find out how to join our live audience, and for lots of free stuff, including free audiobooks and much more. Join us next time for another story from Storylink Radio.